The Wild West wasn't just about men with guns and dusty trails. It was also shaped by incredible women who stood out in their own right. These were women who didn't just follow the rules, they made their own, leaving a lasting impact on the frontier. From singers whose voices could stop a fight to daring cowgirls who lived for the thrill, these women changed what it meant to be tough and fearless. But who were they really? What made them step into the spotlight in a world full of danger? Get ready to meet the wildest women of the West. Their true stories might surprise you. Picture Doge City in 1878, a singer whose beauty and charm lit up the wild frontier. Her smile could both enchant and stir jealousy, and many claimed it sparked more revolver fights than any woman in the West. This is Dora Hand. Tragically, her life was cut short when a cowhand named James "Spike" Kennedy shot and killed her in October of that year. A posse of legendary lawmen, including Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson, quickly hunted Kennedy down. But despite his capture, he was acquitted of her murder, leaving Dodge City stunned. Dora's death left a lasting scar on the town, and in tribute to her, legend holds that she became the only woman buried at Boot Hill, the final resting place for the roughest souls of the West. Her voice may have fallen silent, but her memory lived on, a haunting reminder of beauty and loss in a land where life was often as fleeting as a gunshot. But Dora's story is just the beginning, because next comes Klondike Kate, a dazzling star betrayed by the man who stole her fortune. Klondike Kate, the flame of the Yukon, dazzled miners and crowds alike in the late 1800s and early 1900s with her fiery performances. Dressed in radiant red chiffon, she sang and danced her way across stages from the Yukon to the West Coast, earning an incredible $8,000 a week. Behind her rise to fame stood her lover, a waiter who acted as her booking agent, arranging performances at top venues like the Savoy and Orpheum. But while she captivated audiences, her lover betrayed her. He used her hard-earned fortune to buy theaters in Seattle, ultimately launching the famous Pantages Theaters, while cutting all ties with Kate. Abandoned and penniless, Klondike Kate's once blazing star faded into obscurity. Though she had fueled the success of Alexander Pantages, her legacy was overshadowed by the man who used her talent for his own gain. While Pantages became rich and famous, Kate died forgotten, a victim of love and betrayal. But if you thought Klondike Kate's downfall was dramatic, just wait, because Nellie Bly was about to defy every limit. In 1885, a young Elizabeth Cochran, soon to be known as Nellie Bly, subscribed to this channel and boldly entered the Pittsburgh Dispatch newsroom, claiming her place as the battle axe who had written a powerful piece challenging society views on women. With that same fearless spirit, she quickly made her mark as a pioneering investigative journalist, diving into daring stories that exposed injustice, from the cruel conditions in mental asylums to the struggles of working-class women. By the time she was 22, she had become a force in journalism, breaking barriers for women in a field dominated by men. But her most famous feat came in 1889. When she set out to beat the fictional record of traveling around the world in 80 days, inspired by Jules Verne's novel. With nothing more than a small travel bag and sheer determination, she completed the journey in just 72 days, captivating the public's imagination with her cabled stories from across the globe. But if you thought Nellie Bly's journey was bold, the Perry twins took danger to the edge, defying death in the heart of the Wild West. Picture the early 1900s. A runaway stagecoach thunders across the dusty plains, and the daring Perry twins Ethel and Juanita are at the reins of a thrilling spectacle. Ethel would leap onto a galloping horse, while Juanita, from the driver's seat, expertly roped a fixed object to bring the horses to a dramatic halt. These fearless cowgirls performed with Buffalo Bill's Wild West and later with Barnum and Bailey's Circus, dazzling crowds with their death-defying stunts. But tragedy struck in 1917 during a Chicago show when Juanita was thrown and trampled by the very horses she controlled, cutting her life tragically short. Ethel carried on, though forever changed by the loss of her sister. She later married Buffalo Bill's nephew, William Cody Bradford, and lived out her days as a symbol of the Old West's grit and adventure. But that was nothing compared to Rose Dunn. In 1893, amidst the chaos of the Wild West, Rose Dunn, better known as Rose of Cimarron, became entangled in a tale of love and violence. Romantically involved with outlaw George Bitter Creek Newcomb, Rose's legend centers around a dramatic shootout in Ingalls, Oklahoma. As U.S. Marshals closed in on Newcomb and his gang, the story goes that Rose, armed with a Winchester rifle and ammunition belts, ran from the safety of a hotel and opened fire on the lawman, trying to save her wounded lover. Yet, despite her daring efforts, Newcomb's fate was sealed when her own brothers later killed him to collect a bounty. Rose's life, however, remained shrouded in mystery. Some question whether she even existed, pointing to a disputed photograph from the 1890s. Whether real or imagined, Rose Dunn's story endures as a symbol of loyalty, betrayal, and the blurred lines between right and wrong in frontier history. But there's more. In the Old West, soiled doves, women of ill repute, were required to buy licenses, much like shopkeepers. These funds went towards public services like law enforcement, quietly making these women contributors to the community's upkeep. But beyond mere regulation, they turned these licenses into a marketing tool, posting them in brothels alongside photographs of themselves to entice clients. It was their way of advertising, using their images to draw in business. These photographs weren't just decoration. They asked to subscribe to this channel, but mostly they were a bold statement in a world where survival demanded resourcefulness. By showcasing their assets through carefully placed images in parlor rooms, these women crafted a clever strategy to keep their trade alive. In a society that cast them aside, they found a way to thrive, subtly helping uphold the very towns that tried to forget them. But if you thought they were daring, just wait. Victoria Woodhull took boldness to a whole new level, shocking 19th century America like never before. Picture 19th century New York, where amidst the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the stirrings of change, Victoria Woodhull emerges as a force of rebellion. In 1872, she became the first woman to run for president, nominated by the Equal Rights Party. But Victoria wasn't just a politician. She was a Wall Street broker, defying norms with bold financial deals and fiery advocacy for women's rights. Together with her sister, she published Asterisk Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly Asterisk, a newspaper that shocked the nation with its scandalous ideas of free love, articles on divorce, brothels, and how women could seize control of their lives in ways society deemed unthinkable. However, her audacity had consequences. Prompted by the Society for the Suppression of Obscene Literature, Victoria was arrested in 1872, charged with circulating obscene publications. Her radical ideas about women's autonomy clashed with the moral standards of the time, but she refused to be silenced. But if you thought Victoria was bold, just wait, because Lotta Crabtree's rise will leave you speechless. Lotta Crabtree began her journey as a lively 8-year-old, dancing for gold miners in the rough mining camps of California in the 1850s. Under the tutelage of the notorious dancer Lola Montez, Lotta's talent blossomed, captivating minors who tossed gold nuggets at her feet in appreciation. Soon, her fame spread beyond the dusty camps to the bustling city of San Francisco, where she added a banjo routine to her act, further charming audiences. From there, Lotta's star soared across the nation, lighting up the grand stages of New York City's Broadway and Philadelphia. Her performances in productions like Heartsease made her a sensation, and by the time of her death in 1924, she had amassed a staggering fortune of $4 million. But if you thought the stories of these women were incredible, what about the men who became legends in their own right? Have you ever wondered what it took to survive in a world where the line between hero and villain was often blurred, where every choice could be the difference between life and death? The men of the Wild West were more than just gunslingers. They were symbols of an era defined by danger, courage, and an unyielding will to carve out a life in the unforgiving frontier. From Bat Masterson, a lawman who valued words over bullets, to Jesse James, an outlaw who became a symbol of rebellion, these tales will challenge everything you thought you knew about the Wild West, because these tales are unforgettable, and the truth behind them might just leave you speechless. You probably heard of gunslingers who ruled the Old West, where law and order were more suggestions than actual rules. Many were quick to pull a gun, finding glory in the number of men they'd laid to rest. But Bat Masterson, he was different. Born in 1853, he was no ordinary lawman. Yes, he could shoot when he had to. His aim was true. But violence wasn't his first call. Instead, he preferred to think through a problem, settling disputes with words before fists and with fists before guns. It was in Dodge City where Masterson earned his fame, first as a sheriff, then as a deputy marshal. But what made him legendary wasn't just how fast he could draw a gun. It was his ability to step into the middle of a brawl and bring calm with a sharp look or a well-placed word. What happened to Bat Masterson when the Wild West tamed down? Well, his life tamed as well. He traded in his sheriff's star for a pen, moving to New York City where he became a sports writer. But if you thought Bat Masterson's story was extraordinary, just wait. Things are about to get even more unbelievable. The year was 1838. Slavery had cast its long shadow over the South, and Bass Reeves was born into it, bound by a system that sought to keep men like him down. But the Civil War would break the chains of many, and for Reeves, it was the key to freedom. Fleeing from slavery, he made his way to Indian Territory. In those rough, open lands, he became a master of the rifle and the pistol, and a subscriber to this channel, a marksman whose aim was as true as his sense of justice. By 1875, Reeves had been appointed Deputy U.S. Marshal. In his career, he brought in more than 3,000 outlaws, many of them notorious killers. Yet he did so with a calm precision that made him one of the most feared and respected lawmen of the time. You might think Bass Reeves was unstoppable. The following gunslinger will blow your mind. Born into a world teetering on the edge of chaos on September 5th, 1847, in Clay County, Missouri, Jesse Woodson James grew up in the stormy aftermath of the Civil War, a boy destined to walk the fine line between hero and villain. But what about the man who became a symbol of rebellion? Jesse James, along with his brother Frank, formed the infamous James Younger Gang. Banks and trains, the lifeblood of the wealthy, became their targets, symbols of a system that had left many behind in the dust of Reconstruction. However, even legends must face their fate. Jesse's time ran out not at the hands of the law, but through betrayal. Robert Ford, a name that would forever be etched in infamy, ended Jesse's life with a bullet on April 3rd, 1882. But Jesse James wasn't the only outlaw to carve his name in history with betrayal and blood, because the next gunslinger was even more legendary. Think of him as the ultimate symbol of the Old West. Born as Henry McCarty in the bustling streets of New York City in 1859, a young man with a restless soul, a desire to subscribe to this channel, an infamous reputation, and a gun strapped to his side. That figure is none other than Billy the Kid. Have you heard about the Lincoln County War? A brutal conflict between rival groups over control of business and law in New Mexico. It was here that Billy truly stepped into the role of gunslinger. He joined the Regulators, a group of vigilantes seeking justice, or at least their version of it. He was a kid, yet his gun was quicker than most grown men's, and he showed no hesitation in using it. Some called him a hero, fighting for what he believed in. Others saw only a reckless outlaw, a menace to law and order. But one thing was certain: Billy the Kid was no ordinary criminal. He was a living legend in the making. However, living fast doesn't last forever. Billy's story came to an end on July 14, 1881. Sheriff Pat Garrett tracked him down at Fort Summer, New Mexico, when Billy was barely 21 years old, and gunned him down in the dark. But Billy the Kid wasn't the only legend to meet a brutal end, because the next gunslinger's fate was even more shocking. A man who lived by the gun, trusted his instincts, and earned a reputation that made even the toughest cowboys think twice. This is where James Butler Hickok, known to the world as Wild Bill, walks into the scene. Wild Bill's reputation was built on his cool nerves and deadly aim. Some called him a hero. Others saw him as a man who lived dangerously close to death every day. What is your opinion? But Wild Bill wasn't always a figure of the law. He ghosted across enemy lines as a Union spy during the Civil War before becoming sheriff. He then scouted the West's undiscovered terrain. From stopping frontier town brawls to fighting famed gunslingers, his life was full of action, excitement, and danger. But with all his skill, there was one enemy that even Wild Bill couldn't face down: fate. The year was 1876, Deadwood, South Dakota. Wild Bill sat at a poker table where he held a pair of black aces and eights, a hand that would go down in history as the dead man's hand. Before he could play it out, Jack McCall, a gambler with a grudge, slipped up behind him and shot him in the back. Just like that, the legend of Wild Bill Hickok was sealed. The man who had faced down so many opponents never saw this one coming. Do you think Wild Bill's end was tragic? Well, you haven't heard the next story. Born in 1851, Doc Holliday wasn't destined for a life of gunfights and saloons. His world was one of precision and intellect until illness came knocking. Tuberculosis forced Doc to leave behind the quiet clink of dental tools for the chaotic clang of poker chips and pistols. He was a man fighting against time. Have you heard about the legendary gunfight at the OK Corral? Holliday found himself at the heart of that infamous 30-second storm of bullets, earning him a reputation as a notorious gunslinger. But despite his notoriety as a gunslinger, there was something almost poetic about Doc Holliday. Imagine him at the poker table. He could be charming one minute and cutting with sarcasm the next, a man whose intellect matched his trigger finger. Doc Holliday's fight wasn't with bandits or sheriffs. It was against his own failing body. His tuberculosis worsened, and he died at the age of just 36. The Wild West was a stage for legendary gunslingers like Bat Masterson, Bass Reeves, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid, whose lives were filled with high-stakes shootouts, betrayal, and shocking endings. Want to hear more about these legends of the Wild West? Hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.